My wife told me we were nothing but roommates now, so I stopped treating her like a wife. No romance, no dates, no extra effort. I canceled her birthday getaway, and the look on her face said it all. Welcome back to Leo Narrations, where ordinary people get pushed into a corner by the people who are supposed to love them best and come out the other side no longer willing to shrink. If you've ever been the one who kept showing up, this story is for you. Drop a comment and make sure you're subscribed, because you're going to want to know how this one ends. But let me back up a few months before the porch light finally got turned back on. Before a woman I'd loved for 7 years found out, from her own sister, what I'd quietly canceled without telling her. It was a Friday night in June, and we were sitting on the back porch after Erin got home from another double shift. The porch light was off. Neither of us had bothered to turn it on. She had her phone in her lap, scrolling through something, and I'd been trying for weeks to get 5 real minutes out of her. "Erin, can we talk?" I said. "Actually talk. Not about the dog, not about whose turn it is to do the dishes. Us." She didn't look up right away. "About what, Derek?" "About the fact that I feel like I haven't actually talked to you in a month. You come home, you shower, you sleep, you go back. I don't even know what shift you're on half the time anymore." She finally set the phone down, and when she looked at me, her face was flat, worn out in a way that went past just being tired. "I don't know what you want me to say. Work's been insane." "I know work's been insane. I'm not blaming you for that. I'm saying we used to at least try to close the gap. Now we don't even try." "What do you want from me, Derek? A weekly progress report?" "I want you to remember I'm still here. 3 weeks ago, I asked if we could see somebody, together, just to have a neutral person help us figure out what's going on. You laughed. Actually laughed, like I'd suggested something ridiculous. I didn't mean it like that. Maybe not, but that's how it landed. I planned that dinner for our anniversary back in April. The one you canceled an hour before because a shift opened up. I understood. I always understand. But understanding runs out eventually, Erin." Erin rubbed her eyes. "Maybe because we're not really anything but roommates at this point, Derek. Is that what you want me to say?" I sat with that for a second. 7 years. And that was the sentence she reached for. "No," I said finally. "But thank you for saying it anyway." She looked almost startled that I didn't argue. "That's it? You're not going to fight me on that? What's there to fight? You just told me what we are to each other. I'm not going to stand here and convince you otherwise." "You're being weird." "I'm being honest," I said, standing up. "If that's how you see us, that's what we'll be. Roommates." I went inside, rinsed my glass, and set it in the sink. Erin followed me as far as the hallway. "Derek, come on, don't be dramatic about this." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm respecting the boundary you just set." I kept my voice even, because if I let it crack even a little, I was going to say something I couldn't take back. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight. No reason for roommates to share a bed." She stood in the hallway with her arms crossed, and for a second I thought she'd take it back. She didn't. Lying in the guest room that night, I stared at the ceiling and thought about every conversation I'd tried to start over the last year. The date nights I'd planned that she'd canceled at the last minute. The time I'd brought up maybe talking to somebody, together, and she'd laughed it off like I was overreacting. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I was just done being the only one carrying it. If Erin wanted to reduce 7 years to a living arrangement, fine. I'd show her exactly what that looked like. No more guessing what she needed. No more absorbing the distance and calling it patience. Roommates don't do the things I'd been doing without even thinking about them. Starting tomorrow, I wouldn't either. I thought about the year we got married, how her father had joked at the reception that I was the most organized man he'd ever met, and Erin was going to either love that about me or lose her mind over it. Turned out to be both, most years. I thought about the apartment we'd rented before we could afford the house, how she used to leave notes in my lunch bag before either of us had any reason to stop trying. Somewhere between then and now, the notes had stopped, and I hadn't noticed exactly when, only that they had. Maybe this was cruel, maybe it wasn't. Either way, I was done being the only one who noticed things had stopped. The next morning I got up before my alarm, showered, and came downstairs the way I always did. Erin was already up, sitting on a kitchen stool with her laptop, dressed for a day shift. I could feel her watching me as I walked past her toward the coffee maker. Normally I'd have her travel mug ready before she even came down. Black, one shot of vanilla in the insulated cup with her initials on it, timed so it'd still be hot by the time she hit the highway. That morning I poured myself a cup instead. Just one. "Morning," I said. "Morning." she said slowly, eyes on me. So, are we going to talk about last night? You were pretty clear about where we stand. I took a sip. I'm heading in early. I've got a coverage review this morning. She glanced at the counter, at the empty space where her mug usually sat, and I watched her clock it without saying anything. I grabbed my keys and left before she could ask. Work kept me busy enough. I underwrite commercial policies for a mid-sized firm downtown, which mostly means I spend my days deciding what risk is worth covering and what isn't. There was something almost funny about going straight from that conversation into a morning of reading exclusion clauses. I used to text Erin around lunch, just to check in. That day I didn't. That evening I came home to find her in the living room with her laptop, papers spread across the coffee table. I nodded at her and went to the kitchen to reheat some leftovers. She appeared in the doorway a few minutes later. You're not going to say anything about dinner? I made dinner, I said. For me. Roommates handle their own meals. Her jaw tightened. This is getting old fast, Derek. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you defined our relationship for both of us. I put my plate in the dishwasher. I'm going to take the dog out. I used to skip evening walks because Erin liked us doing it together when she was home. Not anymore. I clipped the leash on and walked 3 blocks longer than usual, just because I could. The dry cleaning was the first thing that actually cost her something. I used to swing by on my way home every Tuesday and grab whatever she'd dropped off. Mostly her good blazers, for the rare days she got pulled into a meeting instead of a 12-hour shift. That Tuesday, I drove past the place without stopping. She texted me around 9 that night. Did you forget the cleaners? No, I typed back. Didn't realize that was still my job. She didn't answer. The next morning, I heard her leave 20 minutes earlier than usual, and when I checked, her car wasn't in the driveway when I left for work either. I found out later from a stray comment she made that she'd had to detour across town before her shift to grab it herself, which put her walking into the ER later than she'd like to be. 4 days in, I did something that probably would have made more sense coming from a lawyer than a husband, but writing things down clearly is just how my brain works. I typed up a 1-page house share arrangement, split utilities, a grocery rotation, a shared calendar for whose turn it was to walk the dog. Then I taped it to the inside of the closet door on Erin's side. I didn't ask her to sign it. I just started living by it. She found it that night. I heard her come upstairs, heard the pause outside the closet, heard nothing for a long moment. Derek, she called from the hallway. What is this? I came out of the guest room. It's fair, I think. Splits everything 50-50, keeps things simple. You made a spreadsheet/legal document for our marriage. For our house share, I corrected. That's what you called it. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. You're actually doing this. I'm doing exactly what you asked for. I went back into the guest room and shut the door. Gently. Not a slam. Slamming would have meant I was still fighting. I wasn't fighting. I was just following the rules. The next week, I stopped doing the small things I used to do without thinking about them. I stopped picking up her dry cleaning on my way home. I stopped taking the dog out on the mornings after her overnight shifts. She had to drag herself out of bed and do it herself before she could crash. I could see it wearing on her, the extra 30 minutes she didn't have anymore. I told myself that was the point. If she wanted to know what roommates actually cost each other, she was going to find out. Wednesday evening, I came home to find her cooking. Actually cooking. Smoked pork, the dish I always asked for on my birthday. Laid out on the coffee table since neither of us had sat down together to eat in days. 2 plates, candles she hadn't lit yet. I thought maybe we could eat together, she said, and there was something almost shy in it, which wasn't like her. Part of me wanted to sit down right there and let it be enough. But it wasn't going to fix anything, just make the next argument easier to postpone. That's nice of you, I said. But I already grabbed something with Wes after work. That was a lie. I was starving, she could tell. You didn't grab anything with Wes, she said. You always eat late. You've never once grabbed food with Wes. I did tonight. You're lying to me. I'm being a considerate roommate, I said. Not making you cook for someone who already ate, her voice climbed. I made this because I wanted to sit down with you, Derek, not because I owed you a meal. Then eat it. It looks good. I meant that part. It smelled like every good memory I had of this kitchen, and it took everything I had to walk past it. I've got some things to catch up on upstairs. So that's it? You're just going to leave the food I made sitting here? I already told you, I ate. Her hands dropped to her sides. You're avoiding me. I'm doing what roommates do, I said. which is not assume they owe each other dinner. I headed for the stairs. Looks good, though, really. Friday, Wes texted asking if I wanted to hit the driving range and grab a beer after. Normally, I'd have said no. Friday nights used to be our night, had been for years. I told him I was in. You look like a man who needs to hit something, Wes said. Once we were at the range, buckets of balls between us. Long week, I said. Things okay at home? I lined up a shot and sent it further than I meant to. Aaron told me we're basically roommates now, so I've been treating us like roommates. Wes raised an eyebrow. That seems like a bold interpretation. She said it, not me. I'm just being consistent. Consistent, he set another ball down. That's a very underwriter way of handling a marriage, man. It's the only way I've got left. You really think ignoring her birthday and splitting the water bill is going to fix things? I don't know if it fixes anything, I admitted. I know pretending everything's fine hasn't worked in about a year. Maybe she needs to actually feel what she said, instead of just hearing me be upset about it. Wes didn't push. I appreciated that. Well, you're welcome out here anytime. Sunday mornings too, if you need somewhere to be that isn't your own living room. I got home around 10. The house was dark except for the lamp in the living room. Erin was on the couch, laptop closed beside her. Have fun. Her tone was careful, watching me for something. Yeah, actually, needed it. We stood there a second, neither of us saying the thing underneath it. Then she said quietly, My birthday's in a couple weeks. I know, I said and left it there. I didn't tell her I'd already had a plan for it. I didn't tell her the plan was already sitting in my inbox, waiting on me to either confirm it or cancel it. I went up to the guest room instead. I'd booked the cabin 2 months earlier. A place outside Luray, near the Skyline Drive entrance to Shenandoah National Park, with a screened porch that looked out over the ridge. I'd already asked Erin's mother, Carol, if she could keep the dog that weekend. It was supposed to be a surprise. The kind of thing I used to do because I liked seeing her face when she realized I'd planned something around her. Not around what was convenient for me. 11 days after the porch conversation, I sat at my desk during lunch and pulled up the reservation. Non-refundable deposit. I read the cancellation policy twice, then clicked through it anyway. The confirmation email that came back felt heavier than it should have for a few sentences on a screen. I didn't tell Erin. There didn't seem to be a version of that conversation that fit inside the rules I'd set. Her birthday landed on a Tuesday. I was up and out before she came downstairs, but I heard her moving around, so I stopped in the doorway on my way out. Happy birthday, Erin, I said. That was it. No card, no gift, no plans. 2 words, the same way you'd say it to somebody at the office. She blinked like she'd been expecting more, even after everything. That's it. What else would there be? Roommates don't really do birthdays. You're unbelievable, she said, voice tight. I'm consistent, I said. I really do need to go. Traffic. I got takeout on the way home that night. Enough for one. Erin was in the living room, and I could tell she'd been crying. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged in a way she hadn't bothered to fix. You got takeout, she said flatly. Didn't feel like cooking. Did you forget, or did you just not care? Forget what? I told you happy birthday this morning. That's not what I mean, and you know it. Her voice cracked. No card, no dinner, nothing. 7 years, Derek, and you treated today like it was any other Tuesday. You told me we're roommates, I said. Roommates don't do birthday dinners. They coexist. That's what you wanted. I didn't want this. Then what did you want? You can't call us roommates and then get upset when I stop acting like your husband. You can't have both. You're being cruel, Derek. No, I'm being exact. You defined it. I'm just living inside the definition. I set my carton down on the counter. If you don't like how it feels, maybe that tells you something you weren't ready to hear a month ago. Forget it, she said, voice breaking. This was a mistake. What, expecting my husband to remember my birthday? You don't have a husband right now. You have a roommate who happens to still be paying half the mortgage. She turned and went upstairs without another word. I heard the bedroom door close. Not slammed, just quiet and final. Somehow that felt worse. 2 days later, my phone buzzed around 8 in the evening. It was Erin, and the message didn't look like the version of her I'd been arguing with all month. You canceled the cabin, and didn't tell me. Mom just told Paige she thought she was still dog-sitting this weekend, and Paige had no idea what she was talking about. So I called her. I know everything, Derek. I sat on the edge of the guest bed and read it twice. Carol must have mentioned it to Paige on the phone, assuming Aaron already knew, and Paige had called Aaron to ask what was going on. I hadn't thought that far ahead when I clicked cancel. I typed back, I canceled it the week you said we were roommates. Didn't seem like something roommates go on together. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. So, you're really doing this. All the way through. You started it, I wrote. I'm just being consistent with what you asked for. No response after that. I heard her come downstairs a few minutes later. I met her in the driveway, where I'd gone to move my golf clubs out of the trunk, mostly just to have somewhere to stand that wasn't the house. You booked us a cabin and just erased it, she said. Her voice was shaking, somewhere between furious and wrecked. You didn't even tell me it existed. You let my mother almost ruin it, and then you let my sister be the one to tell me. I canceled it the same week you told me we're basically strangers living in the same house, I said, keeping my voice level even though my chest wasn't. It didn't seem like something roommates plan for each other anymore. That's not fair. No, I said. What's not fair is spending 2 months planning something for someone and finding out a month later that they think of you as a roommate. I didn't invent that word, Aaron. You did. So you punished me for it. I stopped pretending it wasn't true. There's a difference. My voice was steadier than I felt. You want to know why I didn't tell you? Because there wasn't a version of that conversation that made sense once you'd already said what you said. What was I supposed to do? Keep the reservation for 2 roommates? You could have just talked to me instead of quietly erasing something we were supposed to share. I tried talking to you for a year, Aaron. You want to know what talking to you looked like? It looked like me bringing up counseling and you laughing. It looked like me planning an anniversary dinner you canceled an hour before. I ran out of ways to talk to you that didn't feel like talking to a wall. She stood there in the driveway with her arms wrapped around herself, and for the first time since the porch, she didn't have anything to say back. Over the next 2 weeks, she tried harder than I expected. A note on the bathroom mirror in dry erase marker that just said I missed talking to you. I read it and wiped it off before I brushed my teeth the next morning. A reservation at the Roosevelt, the restaurant on North 27th we used to go to for anniversaries, complete with the green dress I'd always told her I liked. I told her I had a work thing come up. Another lie. I sat in my car in the parking garage that night instead of going anywhere, feeling like the worst version of myself, and went home late anyway, sticking to the plan. A nice dinner doesn't undo a year of being shut out, I told her when she asked why I kept turning her down. I'm not trying to be cruel, Aaron. I just can't keep pretending gestures fix what silence broke. You want me back, you're going to have to actually tell me why you disappeared in the first place. Not perform an apology. Tell me the truth. I don't know how to just say it, she said, standing in the doorway in the dress I used to love, mascara starting to smear at the corner of one eye. I don't know where to even start. Start anywhere. Start with why you stopped telling me things. Because if I told you how bad it's gotten at work, you'd worry, and I didn't want to be one more thing you had to manage. I'd rather worry about something real than wonder why my wife stopped looking at me. She didn't have an answer for that, not yet. So, the freeze held. The following Sunday, she asked if we could just walk somewhere instead of sitting across from each other in the house. We drove down to Belle Isle and crossed the footbridge under the old rail line, and for a while neither of us said much. Just walked along the rocks near the river with the city skyline behind us. Finally, she stopped and looked out at the water instead of at me. I almost sent the wrong dose to a patient 3 weeks before I said that thing to you, she said. Caught it in time. Nobody got hurt. But I stood in that hallway afterward and I couldn't breathe, Derek. We've been down 2 nurses since February. I've been picking up every shift they'll give me because if I don't, somebody else has to, and I don't know how to say no. I didn't say anything. I just let her keep going. I came home that night and I looked at you and I thought, if I tell him how scared I actually am, he's going to look at me differently, like I can't handle it. So I didn't say any of that. I said something else instead. I said we were roommates because it was easier than saying I'm not okay and I don't know how to fix it. That wasn't about me at all, I said slowly. No, it was never about you. It was the fastest way to make you stop asking questions I didn't have answers for. Why didn't you just tell me you were drowning? I would have jumped in. I've been trying to jump in for a year. Because I was supposed to be the one who has it together. That's who I am at work. That's who I am with my mom. That's who I am with you. The nurse who doesn't rattle. The wife who doesn't need help. I didn't know how to be that person and also say, I'm scared out loud. You could have just been my wife instead of a job title for one night. Her eyes filled. I know that now. I didn't then. I looked at you being so calm about everything, and I thought maybe you'd already checked out too, and I was just protecting myself before you could say it first. I wasn't calm because I'd checked out, Aaron. I was calm because I'd run out of louder ways to get your attention. She let out something between a laugh and a sob. So I tested you without meaning to, and then you called my bluff completely. Did I pass or fail? I don't even know anymore, she said. Both, maybe. I looked at her, really looked for the first time in weeks. The exhaustion still sitting under her eyes. The woman I'd married, still there underneath all of it. You know what the worst part is? If you told me any of this 6 months ago, we could have fixed it together instead of doing whatever this has been. I know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Derek. Her voice broke on my name. I sat down on one of the flat rocks, and after a second she sat down next to me, close but not touching. I need you to hear something, I said. I'm not moving back into our room because you told me a story that makes sense. I need to actually see it. You talking to me instead of going quiet. Some real plan for that schedule, because it's grinding you into the ground and you know it. Okay, she said, and for once it didn't sound like a gesture. It sounded like a decision. What do you need from me specifically? Not in general. Specifically. Counseling. Somebody neutral who can hold us both to this, because clearly we can't do it alone. And I need you to promise that the next time something scares you at work, you tell me the same day, even if it's just one sentence. Not a month later, not through your sister. I promise, she said, and reached for my hand. Hesitant, like she wasn't sure I'd let her have it. I did. The next morning, she called the hospital's employee assistance line on her way to work and got a referral for a marriage counselor named Dr. Louise Fenwick. The first available intake slot was almost 2 weeks out. Felt like forever to both of us, honestly. But Erin put it in her calendar anyway and didn't complain about the wait. That same week, she went to her nurse manager, a woman named Diane who'd run that unit for 11 years and did not enjoy being told her already thin schedule was about to get thinner. Erin told me about it that evening, sitting on the porch steps, not the couch, like she was choosing neutral ground on purpose now. I told her I needed off the open overtime list, Erin said. Told her I'd still do my regular shifts, still pick up the occasional extra one if it was an emergency, but I couldn't keep saying yes to every single ask. How'd she take it? Not great, honestly. She said if everyone did that, the unit falls apart. I told her I understood, but I wasn't going to be the one who falls apart instead, so the schedule looks clean on paper. Erin picked at a splinter on the step. She said she'd have to think about it. Didn't say yes, didn't say no. That took guts. It felt like quitting a little, which is stupid because I didn't quit anything. It's not stupid, I said. You've been the person who always says yes for a long time. That doesn't just turn off because you decided it should. 2 days later, Diane approved a capped schedule. Erin's regular rotation, plus one flex shift a month, and no more standing offers to cover whoever called out. It wasn't everything. It was enough to notice. Dr. Fenwick's office was in a converted row house a few blocks from the hospital, all soft chairs and a box of tissues she clearly went through fast. The first session was mostly her asking questions neither of us wanted to answer out loud. When did the two of you stop being partners and start being two people managing a house? She asked, looking between us. Erin answered first. Around the time I stopped telling him things, maybe a year ago, maybe longer. And Derek? When Erin stopped telling you things, what did you do with that? I filled in the blanks myself, I said. Told myself she was just tired. Kept doing more so she wouldn't have to ask. I thought that was support. Turns out it just let both of us avoid the actual conversation. So you both found a way to avoid it, Dr. Fenwick said. Erin went quiet. Derek went useful. Neither of those is the same as being honest with each other. She let that sit for a second. Erin cried. I came close. Aim. You two didn't stop loving each other, Dr. Fenwick said near the end, closing her notebook. You just stopped telling each other the truth on time. That's a fixable problem. It's also the only kind of problem that fixes itself if you're both willing to let it be uncomfortable for a while instead of easy. She sent us home with 2 assignments, 15 minutes every evening, phones in another room, just talking. And 1 night a week, no logistics allowed, no talk of schedules or bills, just being 2 people who liked each other. The first few check-ins were awkward, honestly. We'd sit on the porch steps and run out of things to say after about 4 minutes, glancing at the clock on the stove through the window like it was a countdown. By the 3rd week, it got easier. Erin told me about a shift that had gone badly. I told her I'd been the one who felt invisible for the better part of a year, not just angry. Invisible, like I could have disappeared from the house and it would have taken her days to notice. One Thursday, she canceled a check-in because her shift ran long, texting at the last minute instead of just not showing up, which she pointed out herself was the whole difference. I felt that old flash of doubt anyway, the fear that we were sliding backward. She got home an hour later than planned and sat down across from me anyway, tired as she was, and said, "I know I said I'd be here at 7. I'm sorry. Can we still do this even though it's late?" We did. It was short, maybe 8 minutes instead of 15, but she told me about the shift, and I told her I'd almost spiraled waiting for her, and neither of us pretended that flash of doubt hadn't happened. Another night, she asked me what I'd actually been thinking during those weeks I stopped making her coffee. I told her the truth. Some mornings I stood at the counter wanting to fill her mug out of habit before I caught myself and stopped. It felt like punishing myself as much as you, I admitted. I just didn't know another way to make you understand. I understood, she said quietly. I just didn't know how to say so without it sounding like giving up. By the fifth week, the 15 minutes started running long on their own, spilling into the next hour without either of us checking the clock on the stove. The first real date night, we went back to the Roosevelt. This time I said yes without a lie stapled to it. We talked about nothing important. A renovation 2 doors down from us. A patient who'd brought her cookies as a thank you. Whether we should finally get the dog a second bed for downstairs. It was ordinary. And that ordinariness felt like the whole point. At the end of week 10, I came home from work to find my gym bag already unpacked on my side of our bedroom closet, and Erin's things back where they used to be on hers. She hadn't said anything about it that morning. She'd just done it, quietly, the same way I'd moved into the guest room 4 months earlier and left it for me to notice when I got home. I stood in the doorway for a second. She came up behind me from the hallway. "I didn't want to make a whole thing out of it," she said. "I just wanted to see what you'd do." I set my bag down on my side. "I'm not going anywhere." That was it. No speech. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 10 weeks, which, honestly, she probably had. A few nights later, she found the old house share agreement folded up in a drawer where I'd stuffed it once it stopped mattering. She held it up, half laughing. "Is this thing still in effect?" "Depends," I said. "You want to renegotiate the terms?" We sat down together that night and crossed out the old lines. Grocery rotation, dog walking schedule, split utilities. Then we wrote new ones underneath in her handwriting and mine, alternating. Tell each other when a day was bad, before it turns into a week of silence. No going quiet on each other for more than a night without saying why, even if the reason is just, "I don't know how to talk about this yet." It wasn't romantic, not even close. It was something we'd actually agreed to together on purpose, which counted for more. 4 months after that night on the porch, we rebooked the cabin outside Luray. No occasion this time. "That's sort of the point," Erin said when I brought it up. The cabin was exactly like the photos. A screened porch, a ridge full of green stretching out past the tree line. Quiet enough at night that you could hear the creek 200 yards off. We hiked one of the trails our first evening there, not talking much, just walking side by side the way we used to before either of us forgot how. That night we sat out on the screened porch with the lights off, listening to the creek, and Erin fell asleep against my shoulder before 9, which told me more about how tired she'd been for the last year than any conversation could have. On the drive back into the city, we stopped at Libby Hill Park, up on the hill in Church Hill, where the whole skyline opens up over the river at golden hour. Erin stood at the railing for a while before she said anything. "I've been thinking about that night on the porch," she said. "I keep going back to it." "We don't have to talk about it again if you don't want to." "No, I want to." She turned to face me instead of the view. "I was drowning, and instead of asking you to help me swim, I pushed you off the boat. That's the truest way I can put it. That was the worst mistake I've ever made." "We both made mistakes," I said. "Not like that one," she said. "You didn't let me get away with the easy version of giving up. If you'd just accepted it, if you'd actually let us become roommates, I think we'd have drifted until there was nothing left to save. Instead, you made it cost something. You made me feel exactly what I was asking for until I couldn't stand it anymore." She squeezed my hand. "Thank you for not making it easy." I pulled her in, the skyline behind her going gold at the edges. "You know what I figured out through all of this? Sometimes loving somebody means making them uncomfortable enough to tell you the truth. I didn't do it to punish you. I did it because gentle wasn't working anymore." "It worked," she said. "I hated every minute of it, and it worked." That evening, back home, I got in around 6 after stopping to walk the dog. Erin was already on the back porch. Same spot where all of this had started 4 months earlier. But the light was on this time, and there were two mugs sitting on the little table between the chairs. Milk, no sugar, she said, handing me one. I know you switched a while back. I just wasn't paying attention when you did. I took it, warm, exactly right. You're paying attention now. Yeah, she said, sitting down next to me, close enough that our shoulders touched. I am. We sat out there until it got dark, the porch light humming faintly above us, the dog asleep at our feet. We weren't roommates anymore. We weren't even the strangers we'd been passing each other in a house we happened to share. We were just two people who'd finally figured out how to say the true things out loud, instead of leaving the silence to say them for us.